Awesome. We're going to go ahead and try to get started here. If anybody else wants books, we're going to be able to sell those books after the lecture, and Larry and Angie can sign those as well. So if you don't worry if you didn't get a book yet, we still got some left. I can go ahead with some of the sponsor announcements. So I just want to, I'll step up. Just welcome tonight. Really super excited to have everybody here and be part of this. Thank you so much for those that contributed to make this happen. And it's sort of been a dream of mine to have Angie and Larry come to Santa Barbara, and it's actually happening tonight. And to be back together again is really, really special. So I just wanted to say thanks. Thanks for being here, and thanks for being a part of this. So tonight is, I have another dream that the AIA would sponsor a lecture series on innovative, sustainable, and affordable housing. And that this would be maybe a little bit of a prototype for what we could do with leading edge architects from around the country, maybe developers and builders, to come in and explain how this is being done so successfully in so many other communities, and sort of help us pave the way with our city leaders that this is something we really need to do here in Santa Barbara. So hopefully that happens, but that's the dream, and we're so excited to have Larry and Angie be part of this kind of kickoff. I'm going to walk through a little bit of the, here we go. Why are we doing this? This is what the mission for the Santa Barbara AIA is: to serve our members, the profession of architecture, and the community by promoting design excellence, professional development, and education, which is what this is all about. This has sort of been, once again, something that the AIA really wants to step up. We've got an amazing collaboration to make this happen tonight, and we're all learning about environmental and social equity and how to do housing in the right places in the urban areas where it makes the most sense. And I really want to give a big shout out to our co-sponsors here. The Santa Barbara Foundation has been amazing. Mike Fow and Jackie and the people that are here really got behind this, and we want to say thank you for being a part of this. Brian and the Architectural Foundation of Santa Barbara, they're a big supporter. If it weren't for you guys, this wouldn't be happening. Once again, thank you so much. The Coastal Housing Coalition has stepped up, and thank you for being a part of this as well. And our firm stepped up. So it takes a village, and we're just super excited to be a part of this evening tonight. I also wanted to say, give a brief shout out. Is Ellen here? You wanted to say something, Ellen? I gave her 30 seconds because we have so much to cover tonight, but she wanted to say something about this upcoming event.
Thank you, Michael. Very briefly, I just wanted to make sure everyone's aware that next week, Wednesday, the 26th, there will be the Coastal Housing Coalition Housing Conference. We have had that on an annual basis, of course not during COVID, so we've been off for a bit, but we're back, and there'll be a series of workshops. We'll be updating everyone on all things related to housing, legislatively speaking. There'll be a fun workshop related to transportation and housing and how those affect one another. Anyway, come check it out. It's on Wednesday, the 26th, next week. We hope to see some of you there. Thank you.
Great. Thanks so much. Yeah, there's a lot happening, and we're so excited to be a part of that as well. So I get to do a little bit of a intro tonight from a personal viewpoint, and I kind of put this together. When we look at our lives, most of the time you can't figure things out looking forward, but looking back, you can see how kind of connecting the dots. I am originally from Sarasota, Florida, and grew up on Siesta Key, where Paul Rudolph did his little cocoon house, and the Sarasota School of Architecture was part of what Rudolph sort of led off. That's Riverview High School, where I went to school, that Rudolph designed, and the Cabana beach houses that he did on Siesta Key. And then there's a story here that weaves Larry and Angie in, and so I thought I would just indulge me for a few minutes to sort of tell a little bit of story behind the story. And I actually knew a lot about this, but not so much till I read their latest book, A Journey of Discovery, which many of you picked up. And I loved what Larry had to say here. Chapter 1, nothing comes from nothing. All of us are influenced by something, and this was the image that was on the other side of the page, which was the Healy Guest House, the cocoon house on Siesta Key, I grew up as a little kid fishing off the dock of that house before I even knew I was going to be an architect in junior high school. But this was one of sort of seminal works that Paul Rudolph did back in the early days. And a lot of you may not know, where Sarasota is. So we're out here on the West Coast. I thank God every day. I live in a place like Santa Barbara, and I know you guys do too. It's just an amazing place. Well, there's another little spot on the other coast on the west coast of Florida. Fortunately, we are about 60 miles north of where that hurricane came, but it's another pristine location. And this is what Siesta Key in Sarasota looks like. So that little island there is what the place I grew up. If you can imagine, when I grew up, there wasn't one condominium on that beach. So a few things have changed. But still super beautiful and an amazing place to grow up. And Paul Rudolph moved down there in 41 to 66 is when they sort of said the Sarasota School of Architecture happened. And there's the sort of first generation of people that were in the Sarasota School. Rudolph sort of led that. Walter Gropius called Paul Rudolph the most talented architectural graduate when he graduated from Harvard, and did some amazing work. And part of his office was Gene Leedy and Tim Siebert. Larry worked in Gene Leedy's office, and I worked in Tim Siebert's office. And my dad was also an architect, part of that school, second generation. But he's listed there in the people that were part of that. So it was just sort of nice looking back. We also lived in a Gene Leedy house, which looked very much like that house on the left-hand side. I thought everybody had houses with 12-foot wide sliding glass doors that you just pocket and open up and let the breezes blow through. But then I found out that wasn't always the case. Before air conditioning. So imagine living in Florida before air conditioning, when rolling back the walls and letting the breezes blow through was part of survival, not just being comfortable. And Rudolph did about a dozen projects in and around Sarasota, Longboat Key, Siesta Key, and these are some of those projects. But clearly the most influential one was the Cocoon House. And this is right on Bayou Louise, and that's a big pass in the background. This was right in, literally I grew up about a mile away from this house. And these are some of Rudolph's original pen and ink drawings that are just, phenomenal of what he was doing back in the day. This is what it looked like 50 years ago. And I used to, when I was, again, a small kid, fishing off that dock, I'd go inside the house because it was abandoned at the time, and they didn't lock the sliding glass doors on the dock. So I just walked in and took it over and made it my own, opened up the louvers, sat inside there for hours while we were fishing. And that's what it looks like today. It's been fully restored. So pretty pristine Florida environment, but a very modern house. Also, I had the good pleasure to visit Mies van der Rohe's the Farnsworth House, and that Rudolph and Mies were sort of colleagues comparing guest house, and so the Farnsworth House is sort of a very modernist take. I thought Rudolph actually has something much more regionalistic and appropriate, but it's kind of nice to look at the differences between the two. Then a few years later, went to the University of Florida. That's where I met Larry, and the School of Architecture there. This was the building that we were in at the time. You remember that common area there? We got in all kinds of trouble there, right, Larry? We actually we covered up the drain and opened up the fire hoses and flooded that and made our own lake, and the graduate students started launching models on fire down into the water. Nobody got hurt, but it was fun. But the dean did talk to me about it. It wasn't what architects are supposed to do. And then here's what Larry and Angie looked like back in the day. This is when Scarpa had hair. I think we both had hair back in the day. But Larry, we've been friends for almost 43 years. This is their house. I spent the night there several times, and just it's a beautiful place. But it's great to know people that were, aspiring to do great things. And then in 2010, Larry and Angie got the National Firm of the Year Award and the California Firm of the Year Award. So I gave him the Big Dog Award from the University of Florida, had all the people sign it. That was with Gwynn Pugh, Pugh plus Scarpa. And then a couple years later, it's nice to have people like Larry who, believe in you when you don't believe in yourself. And he put me up for fellowship as my sponsor. And a couple years later, I was inducted as a fellow in the AIA. And I've been fortunate to be able to pay that forward with Cass Ensberg and Dennis Thompson and a number of the other new fellows here in the room. But anyway, it's kind of part of the story. And then, of course, getting the gold medal is the creme de la creme in architecture. It's the top award. And then it was so much fun. I got invited to go back and be a part of it. I feel like Larry and I are sort of brothers from a different mother. You know, we both love this modern architecture. We've been both heavily influenced by Rudolph, and this was just great. This is also, I've got my arm around his son, Calder, he and Angie's son, who's at USC, right? School of Architecture. And there's my son, Eric, who's a licensed architect working with LPA down, working with the big boys, 500-man firm and 6 offices down there in Irvine. So it's got, this is in Crown Hall, by the way, at IIT. So we got the tour of all Mises' top work, but just super beautiful. So this really isn't about me at all. It's about them, but it's very rare that you get a chance to look back and look at the pieces and to see, you know, somebody who's doing such meaningful work. Like I said, Larry and I were going to save the world and set the world on fire. We're doing some great architecture 40 years ago. They're doing it. I'm still trying to make a dent in the universe, as we used to say. But tonight is really all about them and letting them come and share with us what they're doing with housing around the world. So they're gonna, I wanted to read something real quick because I thought this was appropriate. This is their official bio. Angela Brooks, FAIA, Lawrence Scarpa, FAIA, Brooks plus Scarpa Architects. Angie and Larry are recipients of the 2022 National AIA Gold Medal, the AIA's highest annual honor, recognizing individuals whose work has had a lasting influence on the theory and practice of architecture. Angie is only the 3rd woman to receive this award, and Angie and Larry are the 2nd duo. So we're super proud of them. Angie is also the recipient of the 2020 AIA California Maybach Award, the first woman ever to receive this award. In 2010, they received the AIA National Firm of the Year Award as well as the California Firm of the Year recognition. Awards include AIA Los Angeles Gold Medal, National Citizens Architect Rudy Bruner Prize, Interior Design Magazine's Lifetime Achievement Award, 6 National AIA Committee on the Environment Top 10 Green Building Awards, Progressive Architecture Awards, Architecture Magazine's R&D Award, and many others. I had to cut the list short. It went on too long. They are also the recipients of the $4.5 million Housing Innovation Challenge awarded by Los Angeles County for their innovative and scalable solutions to address the homelessness problem, which I know I've spoken with many of you. Affordable housing and the homeless is an issue we have right here in Santa Barbara. They are co-founders of the A&D Museum in Los Angeles, the Affordable Design Leadership Institute, Livable Places, a nonprofit development and public policy organization dedicated to building mixed-use housing and to help develop more sustainable and livable communities. They've also been featured on the Oprah Winfrey Show with Leonardo DiCaprio. Please give a warm Santa Barbara welcome to my good friends, professional colleagues, collaborators, partners on a few projects we're working together, and innovators for over 4 decades, Lawrence Scarpa and Angela Brooks. You guys
It is nearly 100% independent from the power grid. It was built by an architect who specializes in...
A new building that is energy conscious is now going up in Santa Monica, and it's getting a lot of attention. Channel 4's Patrick Healy is there.
At first, it appears to be any new apartment project, just another building noisily being put up on a Santa Monica corner lot. But Colorado Court is in the
One of Leo's personal passions is finding out ways to provide environmentally safe housing to low-income families. Take a look.
We're standing here at the first green affordable housing project in the country. This is Larry Scarpa, the architect. Why don't you...
The idea. That was 20 years ago. And, you know, we were doing what my mother would just describe as Jewish common sense. You know, we looked at, you know, we were not, we came to LA, we were pretty new here. And I was looking around saying, God, the affordable housing looks really bad. I bet I can do a lot better job than that. And so I said, we should do affordable housing. And those people spend most of their income that they have on utility bills. They should benefit from solar power and other, energy efficient means like well-designed passive buildings, all these things. So we just did what we thought was right. We thought what was common sense. We didn't think we were doing anything special. And this building won practically every award on the planet. And much to our surprise, because for us it was really just the right thing to do, but it was still about design. And this building wears the solar panels on its sleeve as the facade of the building. But it's a lot like an old traditional building. It's what Angie would describe as an alphabet building. So it's passively very efficient, but it has then the technology that also brings this. It produces almost all of its own power. And this was the first LEED certified building in this country. And we went through hell to get it certified, but we got it certified. And once we did, all the people who were saying you can't do it, it really became part of the funding mechanism for affordable housing in the state. So the things we worked so hard for here 20 years ago are now standard things that you have to comply with for any affordable housing project in the state. But for us, it was really about design. And we treated this like any other project, about the design. And I always remember what James Wines would say. He would argue that a building that's an energy hog that everyone loves is more sustainable than a zero energy building that nobody likes. And so this is really not a design concept. I like to say, there are a bunch of architects out there. Anyone go, hey, look at my building. It's great. It's ADA accessible. You don't go around, but we seem to go, isn't my building great? It's sustainable. It's the same thing. It's a question of ethics. It's pretty simple, small units, passive, cross ventilation, natural light. Again, it's something I say, anyone out there hate natural light, hate cross ventilation? You do that, you're a winner. It's like you don't have to do a whole lot. But it has things that which we've always done, we've tried. It has some innovative things like micro turbine, which didn't really work very well. We did some innovation with stormwater management and working with Heal the Bay. But it was, by everyone's measure, it was groundbreaking for a lot of people.
And you found $500,000 in grant money.
Yeah, to do this. But despite all of that, we had a certain sense of emptiness. Like we looked at it like you look at our building and look at the ground floor. This is downtown Santa Monica. It is prime commercial. And the best we could do to convince our client was to put a community room on the ground floor. So we started to think, for a lot of reasons we couldn't do it. There were funding requirements, the whole thing, way too much to get into right now. But we said, it's just not right, and is our building really better than that building you see there on the left? Is it any better? Is it making a contribution to our cities in a way that building should? And we were really troubled by that. And so what we did when we finished this project, we summoned many of our colleagues together, and we started to talk about ways to make affordable housing projects better community contributors and be better parts of our cities. And so we had bankers, lawyers, nonprofit developers, for-profit developers, contractors, landscape architects, And we met at our office the first Saturday of every month for a year and a half to try and do something about it. We did things like, this is Roger Sherman, who did a studio at SciArc. We were densifying, or our idea was to take the single family lot and densify it to build more on it. Okay, we're talking 20 years ago. Well, what's happening today? They're abolishing the R1 neighborhoods. ADUs are like the big thing. We were doing that 20 years ago, but at that time we were told this is political suicide.
We also determined that one architect shouldn't design more than 1 acre of land.
So we wanted to do something to improve our cities, really. And you know, what we thought about was the working poor. So our office was in Santa Monica, and it's kind of like Santa Barbara too. They're well-to-do communities, and disadvantaged people can't afford to live there. And we're talking not just homeless people, but teachers, firefighters, nurses, hotel workers can't afford to live where they work. And it makes families' structure go backwards, where what would typically happen is we have, people that live in Palmdale, and one person travels to LA 2.5 hours to work in a hotel. They work 12 hours, they come back, they never see their kids. And so it's a cycle that never gets broken. So it was like, how can we put people closer to their jobs? And so we wrote some grants. We said, let's do something more meaningful. We wrote a bunch of grants, and we like overnight, we got millions of dollars to address this problem. And we became this nonprofit group that we founded called Livable Places. And our idea was to make more sustainable, livable communities. And so we wanted to do that not just with buildings, but with policy to show how it changed. And I know Ken was part of that early on. One of the things we did, we held a design competition and invited people to tell us, what should we be doing? What are the ideas? And we bought this building. We bought this building in just Lincoln Heights, just north of downtown. It's part of the downtown. It was a warehouse for Fuller Paints. We paid $3 million for this building, 100,000 square feet. It's right across from the original LA prison. We were getting offers to make a lot of money on this without doing a single thing. But what we wanted to do was show what could be done, how we could do better buildings.
And the neighborhood is industrially zoned, the entire neighborhood industrially zoned, where it's illegal to build housing.
It took 26 variances and 3 years to get this project built. And it's a mixed-use project with market rate on top, affordable in the middle, and live, work, and other community uses on the ground floor.
And this is the gold line going right by it. It's within a quarter mile of the gold line.
So, what happened was once we did this was like a no man's land for developers. Developers started buying all the land around us. And we were kind of angry because we couldn't be part of it, because we had access to money, we just didn't have the money. So we started competing with developers, but it was a double-edged sword. Our mission was happening, the community was changing. And so what began to happen was all this news popped up of people building apartments, building retail, building stuff in the community. And it's continuing today. This is Patrick Tye's building. It's almost done. You can see our building right there in the corner. This was approved by the city last year. This is right across the street, the Lincoln Heights jail. That's going to be turned into $1 billion new development that's going to look like this. And so it's kind of happened. We priced ourselves out. We couldn't do it, but the community is changing. But all good things have a bad side too. So we wanted our building to stay affordable, but we didn't have the right mechanisms in place. And we also felt, people just because they're poor, why can't they make a profit like everyone else? And so they would sell their projects. And this is something I just took from a website in 2016. You can see them going for $500,000. These now go for over $1 million in there. So it's gotten gentrified. So we had some successes. I think we also had some losses, but we've learned.
Because it's no longer affordable.
Because it's no longer affordable. But one thing that we really did with Livable Places that even surprised us is we thought we would do development and show what could be done by example. And with the developer fees, we could finance our policy work. Well, it wound up happening 180 degrees different. People were so interested in our ideas, what we did, that they were funding our policy, and we were basically getting a lot of activity in policy, and we were very active. And so this was an ordinance we wrote. If you were from LA, or some of you maybe practiced there, you've probably heard of the small lot ordinance. We wrote that. Okay.
The planning department would actually ask us to help them write policy.
Yeah, so we would, when they started building transit in LA, we would go to them and tell them that, look, no one's building housing. And they would say, well, that's not true. And we would show them the data, and they would go, well, your data is wrong. I go, well, we got it from your department. And they're like, really?
If no one's allowed to live there, no one's within a quarter mile of your transit stop. If you have to build 2 cars per unit, you can't build dense housing near
So
your
they started to listen to us, and they would send proposed zoning amendments to us for review, and we would comment. So we started to write our own. And this was the one that they accepted. Now they've rewritten it, and it's changing. Thousands of projects have been built. I'm just showing you a few.
And the idea behind it was that you take a single lot and you're able to make fee simple homes on a single lot with no side yards. So you would take a parcel that had 1 house and you could put 5 condominiums on it or 5 houses. It's like brownstones in another city. But it wasn't legal in the city of Los Angeles.
You can see Angie's a detail person. But these are some of the projects that have been built under the small lot ordinance. Lorcan just finished this one. Rios Clemente Hale, Barbara Bester, even us. We take advantage of it. But it's a great thing. There's even a website now that tracks small lot ordinance projects. Even HUD follows it. As like a model for how development should occur. But with all good things, we always thought if you do policy, it becomes permanent, but we find out that it's maybe even less permanent than building. So everyone's getting their hands in it. And things are changing now, not for the good. So we even go in now with our own projects under this ordinance, and we'll have someone from the city tell us, well, that's not the intent of the ordinance. And we'll go, really? We wrote that. I can tell you about the intent. But so that's what happens. But
ironically, it's a downzoning of something that was meant to make houses more affordable. So rather than 1 house, you could have 5 houses on the same lot. And the idea was that it'd be more affordable. And the very people who want more affordable housing in Los Angeles are telling us we can't do this anymore.
So we don't quit. We sort of operate in a bit of a parallel universe. These become kind of our night jobs. So we also founded what's called the Affordable Housing Design Leadership Institute. And this was another idea that we had. There's a thing that exists called the Mayor's Institute on City Design. and mayors from all around the country come together and discuss their city problems in a forum with problem solvers. And they're professionals from around the country. So we said, why can't we do that for housing? And so we again wrote some grants. We got awarded a bunch of money, so we became a new nonprofit group. And the idea was to bring together a group of architects, landscape architects, bankers, nonprofit developers, legal folks, builders, into a forum to help nonprofit and community developers with their projects. And so we paid for everything. We brought them in for a 3-day institute, and we did lectures. We kind of taught these groups how to make better city buildings. The first one we held was in 2000, I think in 10, in Minnesota. We thought this was going to be a one-time thing. We're now in our 13th year doing this. And it's no longer run by us. It's run by Enterprise Community Partners. It's a national organization. We started out doing everything. Now they don't even need to talk to us anymore. They do it better than us. And that's part of what we try to do, is you can do more when you get other people to do your work. So we don't try to hang on to it. We try to put this in place so others can pick it up and work on it. And I always remember what Charles Eames said. He said, ideas don't belong to anyone. They're out there for others to pick up, and he says snatch and work on them. And he says you have to treat those ideas with the utmost of care, because if you don't, you ruin them for everyone. And Enterprise has taken this beyond our wildest dreams. But what we really wanted to do was, show how to make the buildings better, community buildings. This is how we think of design. There's us and there's the developer, right? This is what it really looks like. And so what we found is that like 70% of the design decisions are made before we're even in the conversation. So what we try to teach is that really design matters. And we put forth a whole series of publications. This is just some of the things from our institutes that we've recorded. This is all available to the public, free. You can go online and download all this stuff. We have pre-development toolkits, all the proceedings that we are recorded. And what we're basically trying to do is to show that affordable housing can make cities richer. And we're not just doing that to try and advocate for affordable housing. We really believe that diverse communities are more sustainable, more rich, and better places to live.
None of us at the end of a hard day at work say, I think I'm going to go to my housing unit after work. No one says that. People say, I'm going home. And hopefully the residents who have the opportunity to be in a home of their own, leaving a life of homelessness behind, hopefully they feel those same sorts of connections to what a home represents. People are always a little worried about an affordable housing building going in or a supportive housing building going in. And I think all too often, homeless folks who have passed through various systems probably reflect the worst in design. This is the local welfare office. This is the local mental health office. This is the local probation office. At best, pretty utilitarian. At worst, spaces that communicate a very negative message to the people who engage in those spaces. And we think that's a model that should be changed. Design can be used creatively as a solution to ending homelessness, no matter where it exists. So this is a rectangular shaped building on a rectangular shaped lot. Nothing terribly unusual about it. Pretty commonplace actually when you think about it. But I think it says you can do something really imaginative and creative in terms of crafting that solution, even on a plain old apartment building lot. Angie mentioned that the facade of this building is actually a space, which is the first time I heard her describe it that way, and I thought, that is really pretty interesting. The facade is actually a space. This is a great looking building on this block, even without homeless folks in it. The fact that homeless people live here, I think, once again, promotes a very positive depiction of what supportive housing can and should look like, in my opinion.
I used to sneak in McDonald's and stuff, like after the restroom, and go in there and take a bath. My pride was really bad to just go and say I'm homeless. This building is marvelous. So I have family come visit. We have a community room. Like you want guests, your guests don't have to be inside your home. They can be inside the guest room, enjoy your company for a couple of hours, and send them on their merry way.
We created an aperture which was lifted up above the street so that it appears really open. There's a visual connection to the street, but not necessarily a physical connection.
You can come up on the roof and just relax your brains and get your thoughts out and make yourself better. This building right here will make you a better person.
We're teaching our tenants to be architectural critics. He's on the way.
But my career got started in a nonprofit developer's office. I became an architect and thought that what architects did was design cities. And when I started working for an architect, I realized that we didn't design cities, we actually designed buildings after everyone else made all the really big decisions. So I worked for the LA Community Design Center, and Mike Alvidrez, who you just saw, who I've known for 30 years, was a young person who had just graduated from urban design school at UCLA, and he used to borrow pencils from me, and we would talk about cities and problems with cities. And we've been talking to him for a long time about building affordable housing in LA. So he ran the Skid Row Housing Trust for 30 years and hired us to do this building, which is their first building off of Skid Row. So Skid Row is gentrifying, and he's been priced out of Skid Row. So this building we did for him, which is called the Six, is for homeless veterans. And the term the Six is a military term that means I've got your back. It's a very dense building. We're gonna start showing some buildings, and we show the density on all of the images so that you can see. This is 153 homes per acre, which is really, really high. But when you build something that's that density, you really need to create space as well for people to be. And so you'll see all of our buildings that are 6 stories and below have courtyards. The courtyards are really the lungs of the building. You can see that you get cross ventilation through the building. Larry's pushing me out in front, which I don't want to do. And then I can't see the image. But one of the things we do is a little trick, which is that buildings usually look really defensive when you put fences around them, and these types of buildings for people who are previously homeless have to be really secure. So Larry will get that going again.
Uh-oh. There. Oh.
They have to be really secure. So this building is completely secure, but you don't really see a fence.
Hang on.
It looks really open. We met with the building committee, and this is actually the first time in my life that I met with the building.
Hey, Mike, I don't know what happened here with the screen. It's going to a different thing here.
And I can keep talking. This was the first time in my life that I met with a building committee that was made up of people who are previously homeless. So the tenant population is homeless people, And we had designed actually a big monumental stair coming down, connecting the courtyard to the street. And people on the building committee told me they didn't want to be that connected to the street. The street's a very dangerous place. And so we had to think about how to make a social space for people that was visually connected to the street, but physically separate. And so by raising the courtyard up a floor and providing, the bike room, the computer lab, and all of their other amenities on the ground floor, and to provide this sort of steps planter in the front, we were able to get rid of what you usually see, which is a big guardrail in the front of the courtyard, and have a space where they can sort of be. This is a big rec room on the second floor that opens onto that courtyard, and they have social events, they cook food there. But it's all studio apartments. We take things like the exit stair of the building, which is something that you have to have anyway, and we do not put it into a stair shaft. We make it an exterior stair, part of kind of the circulation of the building, and we make it something where people actually want to be.
We're back in business.
All right.
I think.
And you can advance.
I'm trying.
There's actually a series of social spaces here. So there's the courtyard, and then there's the roof, which has more open space. And for some of you in the room who submit for Code Awards, Committee on the Environment, one thing that I found out when I was submitting for the award is that this building actually lies under the Pacific Flyway, this migratory pathway for birds. And so by providing all this planting on the roof, it allows the birds to have a place to stay, or it attracts insects. And so by learning about sort of the environment and the ecology of the environment, we were able to kind of help in that realm. This is a view of the interior courtyard looking out. So everyone circulates through this courtyard. And courtyards also, Larry mentioned alphabet buildings. And those are buildings that, if you look at the floor plan of them, they are letters, letter E or the letter A. And they were how we used to build 100 years ago, because you could build passive buildings like that. So you got natural light from both sides and cross ventilation. And we need to do that again, because that's what a passive building is. This is another one in Santa Monica, and this is 267 homes per acre, which is about the same density as Manhattan. These units are about 245 square feet each, but it's an urban building. It's an urban building in downtown Santa Monica, and the challenge for us was that it had a very small, short facade, and so we do this mass customization in our office, which is that we look at something, and if you do it once and then put it around your building several times, you can get cost efficiency, but also beauty. So these panels are water jet cut panels that are cut in one pattern. They were cut once, and then they were anodized different colors and put on the front of the building. So the architecture becomes a very small part of the overall cost. And the units themselves are very small with Murphy beds that flip out of the wall, but you still get cross ventilation between each unit. And this is a place where people who have been chronically homeless have come to live. One of the tenants, after he had been there for about a year, told me that he slept on the floor of his unit for an entire 6 months because he was afraid that it would be taken from him. So just getting a key to his front door, when people say, 245 square feet is too small, Angie, well, it's not too small if you've been chronically homeless living on a sidewalk.
2011, I messed around and somehow in front of my grandmother's house, I got shot for no reason. She lives in Compton though. I was at my grandmother's house, boom, got shot. I got on SSI. I got shot right here. Right here. And it came out, it brought me to the hospital, they took it out. I had to see where my mental health was and my body, because it was bad, I could not put my thought together for work. It hurt so bad. So I got on SSI. And 2013 or 14, something like that, I ended up joining with Step Up. They help you fix your mind, you got to do it every day. 48 hours, you got to do 2 days. thought processing, and they help out with the mental health of that disorder. I'm not gonna lie, this building is like the future, or the futurism, because I mean, every time you look around, you're like, wow, is that decorative? You know, is that advisive? You know what I mean? It's just very, very nice too, and I love the skyscape or something like that.
He's still in training as an architectural critic. We're working on him.
But this is the letter E, so this shows you what an alphabet building really is. 2 small courtyards. We were able to get into this building. The parcel size is just 50 by 150. It's essentially a suburban lot size, but the density is very high.
250 units per acre. That's the average density of New York City.
This is just one of the courtyards. Design matters when you build density. And the IPCC just came out with a report about climate change. And one of the things that they said is that carbon emissions are directly related to income level. So it tracks with income level way more than population or any other kind of density, except that when the income level is in a dense urban environment. So building density and building housing that's dense and building mixed-use communities where people can live and work solves a lot of our challenges with climate change. And then courtyards. Courtyards are so important to us, and historically they've been important to us. That's Irving Gill on the upper right. And they're important because they do meet those passive goals for us, but they're also social spaces.
It's a typology that's existed for thousands of years. It's one that works in housing. We basically, all of our buildings, you know, we didn't really think about it, but they're all courtyard buildings in one way or another.
But Irving Gill's project would be illegal today. Not enough parking, not enough space in the units. On Skid Row, we have also built shared housing. These are 2 buildings called Rossmore and Weldon for Mike Alvidrez. And when he came to us, he said, Angie, you probably don't want this project because there are 2 buildings that are already existing. One, you just have to add an elevator to. The other one, you just have to make ADA accessible. And so we said, okay, well, we'll take a look. We'd love to do it for you. And so what we discovered was both buildings had these tiny courtyards that were underutilized, and people just basically used them as leftover space.
Yeah, what you see here is the fire exit of that building. So we looked at it. We looked at it as a design opportunity where even our client was looking at it as something with no design. So it's a tiny little junk space that looked like that, and now it looks like this.
So behind this wooden screen is actually the bedroom windows of some of the units. These benches slide back and forth, but this is literally the only exterior social space in this building, which has the density of over 400 homes per acre, because this is shared housing. There's a common kitchen on the ground floor, and everyone lives above the ground floor and then shares bathrooms. This is another side yard of a building where, you know, when people see an underutilized space where people put junk, other people start throwing their junk there. So they actually had a screen above this where people were throwing junk out of their windows on top of this space.
It had a sky of trash above this. We didn't really get the pictures, but it's an 8 by 60 foot space.
And
that
we
looks
turned it
like
into
that.
this.
Looks like this now. And the idea was all the tenants would get a plant, and they get to have a plant, and you know, they have a little kind of competition who has the best plant. It's worked to some degree and not in others. So courtyards don't have to be big or elaborate to work and be good.
And we have a small office in Florida. We're doing 3 projects in Florida that are senior affordable housing. This is Normandy Isle. And in Florida, there's a lack of affordable housing in this area. A lot of very rich people. You can actually take a stone and hit Ivanka Trump's house on the next island over from this one. But we have 2 parcels. One fronts the water, one fronts the golf course. and combined, they're about 110 units.
And it's a historic neighborhood, so I don't know why, but for some reason they give us the most difficult things that are possible, you know. We got it fully approved and we're about to start construction on this project now. So this is what we hope it will look like.
It's mid-century modern aesthetic, but it also has a courtyard. In Florida, the challenge is really how to connect to the street because of sea level rise, we have to actually raise the ground floor several feet before you even get to your courtyard. And then the street is actually planned to be raised 3 feet in the future. And so we have to plan for that as well. So everything is actually going to be getting raised in the future. And then this is North Hollywood in Los Angeles. We have a lot of communities that are becoming more hip and sort of gentrifying, but also adding affordable housing. And you can see the picture on the lower right. You know, an 8-lane highway needs density. It's right next to transit. So we've seen a lot of building of mixed use.
That's our site right there on the left on the 8-lane highway. But this is an inclusionary housing model. We think this is the future. It has market rate and affordable housing. So there's a less NIMBYism when it comes to that. And you're, again, putting people where the jobs are.
And this was a private developer who took a couple of bonuses from the city for doing mixed use. He got a bonus for adding extra units, and then for adding 10% affordable units, he also got a bonus. So he was able to build a bigger project by doing things that I think, frankly, should just be by right in the city. But it's another courtyard building. And someone asked me, Angie, why don't all the units face the street? Then everyone will have a street view. And I said, well, if you do that, only certain units actually face the street. But if you put the units in the back and have your big aperture in the front, everyone then actually gets a street view, and you actually just look through the courtyard to the street. And in Venice, California is where we live. Their affordable housing hasn't been built in 20 years. So this, again, is another courtyard building.
Yeah, and we've been there for a long time. When we moved there, we describe it as when, you know, Venice, when we moved there in 1988, we had helicopters every night for gang wars. We still have the helicopters, except they're following Lindsay Lohan to court. You know, so we would build these projects all day long then. Now we have every person in the planet comes out against these projects in the neighborhood.
And so for us, design is really political cover. The Venice Neighborhood Council unanimously rejected this project because they didn't want affordable poor people to be in their neighborhood. And the Planning Commission unanimously approved it because it was a great, equitable, affordable, beautiful building.
And you could see it's a courtyard building as well, a different kind of version of that.
This was the headquarters of Venice Community Housing, and they were in 2 really old buildings. And Becky Dennison, the executive director, called me over and she said, Angie, I can't afford any more land in Venice. It's too expensive, but I really want to build affordable housing here. And I said, well, you own 2 parcels outright that you're sitting on now. We could just develop the parcel that you're on. And she would obviously have to move out and move back in, but she decided to do that. And so she asked me what that would look like. And I did a sketch for her and discovered that in the city of LA, the Bureau of Engineering had a plan to widen streets. And so the front property line has been, with a tract map, put back from the street by about 13 feet. Now we can take that land back. So I presented it to her, and her front property line came back out to where it should be on the street. She was allowed to get more density, and I showed it to her, and she says, okay, let's do it. So this is 35 homes for homeless people. It's a combination of adults who are homeless and what they call TAY, young adults, which are transitional aged youth between the ages of 18 and 22 who have come out of the foster care system, who actually are a large percentage of our homeless population.
The landscape become, I call it our poor man's hanging gardens of Babylon. But the courtyard is really where the life is here as well.
And we wanted this building to be a sculptural object for everyone in the neighborhood, beautiful for everyone who looks at it, so you can see a lot of the greenery from the exterior. It's across the street from Whole Foods. Now that it's built, everyone loves it. What we found is that generally people don't want anything to happen in their neighborhoods because they don't like change, but once they see it, and once they see how great it is that people can really live there and be there with everyone else, then they just love it.
We have this piece that cantilevers out this over the street there, and this is kind of a version for us. There's 270-degree views here from the ocean to the mountains, so that people can go out there and enjoy the view that most people don't even get. A few years ago, everyone here I'm sure knows of the housing crisis we have in LA and the homelessness. I think we're at 60,000 plus homeless population in LA. And the voters have passed several bond measures to the tune of billions of dollars to do something about it. So as part of that, the county put out what they called the Housing Innovation Challenge. And they were looking for scalable solutions that could help solve this problem. This was targeted really as to developers. Well, we said we should enter it. We could do it better than most. So we put together a team and we won. So we basically came up with this thing called the Nest Toolkit, which is a kit of parts. It's not meant to be a design, but it's meant to be a kit that other designers and architects can take and work on.
And the County of LA said we don't want to change policy. So that's the first thing that I thought of. If you want to build more housing, that's what you do. But they said no. So this is really meant to fill kind of the middle range of density, vacant lots, because that is needed.
Yeah, and so what we found, there's 27 cities in LA County, all have their own codes, everything's different, but what they have in common are those 3 lot sizes. 80% of them are that size.
Or a combination of those sizes.
Or a combination. And so we took all the codes, we took everything, we distilled everything down to what was common and came up with a building area and a strategy that would fit with within all of those cities' codes. And we came up with a toolkit that you could configure based on prefabricated components that you could just select them and they will fit on any of those sites in LA County.
And it was really tailoring what already existed, which was the prefab custom home building industry, to the housing that we were doing, which was very repetitive.
So we showed all these different possible configurations. They could take on from really low scale to more higher dense projects. And the idea was that we would leave room for the designer or other architects to be able to move these within that site so that they could create custom facades
or you can skin your building yourself.
Or increase the courtyard size, but there was enough flexibility so that you could get a whole different appearance or configuration. So as part of our proposal, we just showed here's what's possible. This is now available through Plant Prefab in Rialto. And our hope is when we finally get it all perfect, you're going to be able to go onto their website. You're going to be able to take your site, plug in your information, start picking modules, and it will configure for you and spit out a price, and you purchase it, and you're underway. So Angie came up with these different modules. You want to just talk about those?
So from temporary housing to permanent housing, some of the modules could be studio apartments. Some of them could be put together to make shared housing models. And they're colored different colors so that you can actually put them together as this toolkit. But they're all exactly the same size, and they can be elongated depending on really what you need for your site. And we're in, is the next one?
Yeah, like all good tools, we create them for other people, but we take advantage of it too. So we have several projects underway now.
And Plant Prefab is building another factory as well. So part of the prefab home building industry is it has to be close, and there has to be a factory, and there has to be enough space for you to build what you need when you need it.
It's a 13-unit alley site. It's a very narrow site that's we're about to break ground on.
This is 13 homes. The site's 42 feet wide.
This was one we just submitted with a developer that we won in Culver City. This is 38 units right next to the Kirk Douglas Theater in downtown Culver City. And this is one it's, hang on, yeah.
That's still the Culver City.
Yeah. So this is right by Santa Monica College. And what we found was another problem that's becoming more and more prevalent is homeless kids that are going to college. They're living in their cars. And so this church, the Lutheran church, right a couple blocks from Santa Monica College, you can see the college right here. Here's Mount Olive. They're just a few blocks away. They're actually housing some homeless students that they found in their neighborhood. Mm-hmm. So we went to them and talked to them. They got a huge parking lot right there. And we went and talked to them and said, hey, why don't we house some more homeless kids for you? And they're like, well, how can we do it? You know, you have a huge parking lot. They go, yeah, but it's zoned R1. We can only
Which means a single family house only.
We can only put a single family house on. So we came up with Santa Monica hates us because we do this all the time. We have a 17-bedroom single family home.
Well, and the state of California is coming out with bills to allow us to do more. And so we're using the ADU code to put 2 kitchens in
15-bedroom with an ADU.
And 2 kitchens.
And it's raised above the site, so we keep all the parking.
With a courtyard.
That they have, has a courtyard that's raised up, so they'll retain all their parking. And, you know, City of Santa Monica is scratching their head. They always rewrite their rules after we do stuff like this.
And a lot of faith-based organizations have a lot of land and want to build affordable housing.
This is one we're going to do actually at our office. It's an 8-foot wide footprint to build on. And this will be a prefab module. You could see the footprint. It's like in our little driveway.
It's industrially zoned, but we're allowed to build 1 housing unit.
So that's what that's going to look like in the end. And then about a year or so ago, or just pre-pandemic, we convinced an art gallery to let us do an art show on housing, affordable housing, and they thought we were crazy. You know, what do you mean?
No one's going to come.
No one's going to come. No one will look at that. So we basically made this show that was like a gallery show. We made it like a big painting. And this is, when you get close to it, it has all the information about density, about housing, about how these are models for what you can do.
We compared New York City with Los Angeles. The population's about the same, but the density is completely different.
Turned out to be their biggest turnout of all shows.
Because they didn't know what they were getting into.
Yeah. We were even on TV for this. And
I was asked to speak in front of the Joint Planning Commission and Housing Commission meeting with the City of Santa Monica.
So if you know anything about the art world, you know, we were featured in one of the premier art magazines as a show not to miss.
Talking about affordable housing and density.
It's kind of crazy. It's just how you see it, you know. And so I think in the end, what we really need to do is change the narrative. It's not, there's nothing bad with it. It's just how we see it and how you tell the story. It really can be a strong and positive contributor to all of our lives. So we're going to leave you with a short little film that won a AIA Film Award based on the idea of affordable housing.
We've become a culture that ignores people and looks the other way. Our homeless problem, especially in Los Angeles, is so large now that it's almost untenable.
Los Angeles has the highest number of unsheltered people anywhere in the country, and clearly you can see that in Skid Row.
There's a lot of suffering that goes on. If you're not ready to live in the streets, it gets pretty profound.
For those individuals who have been largely isolated and alone, beginning to try to build
solutions to homelessness can look like.
I've known Mike for a long time, and this is really our first collaboration. The name of this project is the 6 that we did for Mike, and that means that, in military terms, it means I've got your back. And really, Mike is the 6 for homeless people.
I think I was one of the first people who moved, who had keys, and I thought I was dreaming. And I came in and looked, it was empty. I was like, whose house is this? They said, yours. I got a little radio, a microwave, a crock pot. What more can you ask for?
They have everything contained in their own unit, but then we have
my breath away.
groups
Because I've been suffering for a number of years. Suffering for years. And what are you going to expect, you know?
Breaking stereotypes of the homeless goes back to design. It says something. It says we care about you.
Design definitely can empower individual. If you ask Mike, he'll tell you that good design is part of the healing.
A little bit like Frank Sinatra, if you can do it here, you can do it anywhere. No one has a bigger homeless crisis than we do here in Skid Row.
I think it's absolutely a replicable model. All you need is the will to do it.
These are our cities. Whatever we make here, whatever buildings we build here, they're part of the larger fabric that defines our cities.
Thank you, everyone.
Yeah, let's give them a big hand. Yeah, very amazing work, and I'm just more excited about their passion to take on a challenging problem like this, and we're just getting started, right, Larry?
So they say.
So they say. One of the things Angie was telling me too, if you scan that QR code, it'll go immediately to their website and give you a tour of 6 other of their projects, so that's pretty cool. We wanted to open it up for a Q&A session. If anybody's here, this is also being recorded, by the way, so thanks so much to the Santa Barbara Foundation who actually provided the funding for us to be able to record this, and it'll be posted. We'll tell you, get that link to you so that we can pass this forward. I'm going to walk around with the microphone because we want to hear your questions.
Thanks, Larry and Angie. That was terrific. I'm curious about the prefab, working with plant prefab. And is that turning out to be less expensive to build or faster? Or, what?
Everything's less expensive than doing affordable housing. So the thing is there's so many rules, and this is something we have to change. It's 20 to 25% more expensive than market rate to do affordable housing. So what we want to do is by doing a lot of this in the factory, we can do it at market rate. So we just drop the costs by 25% by doing most of it off-site. So.
And then it's also quicker to build, I presume?
It's quicker.
There's more upfront time.
There are a lot of issues. I mean,
it's a more restrictive schedule because you have to pay for it up front a little bit, get it built.
We'll have to sit down over a beer, Robin.
Yeah.
We did just cost,
I know Steve Glenn, and we've done a lot.
We did just cost this little project that we showed, which is 13 units. And whether it was stick-built or prefab, they came in about the same numbers. Yeah. So with prefab, you actually get the benefits of not being under construction for 2 years. You can come out and 13 units can be put in like 3 weeks, I think. So, and then you skin it, you know, so you get the benefit on the construction side so far, but I do think when you build more units, you get a definite cost decrease. But you have to remember that when you build prefab, you're doing double walls, double floors, and double roofs on every single unit. So you're actually building more, using more materials with prefab, and the cost is about the same right now. And it probably is going to come lower when you build at greater numbers.
Other questions? Right over here.
So I used to live in Hermosa, and I tried to save North School, which was one of the very few Art Deco schools left. And it was done by this amazing architect who had come back after World War I, helping rebuild Paris. And it was at the time that the school system was starting to really change their attitude about how kids learn. And they invited the outdoors in and the indoors out, so that each classroom had these 15-foot wide banks of windows, 12-foot high, which is amazing, right? And I'm noticing in your work that you're doing that. You're inviting, not only inviting nature in, but you're planting nature inside and inviting the environment around. And so my question is really around this idea of how do we change people's attitudes about nature, especially with climate change. You know, so much of housing has always been keeping nature out. And I'd love to hear your thoughts or your vision for how we could have more people relate to nature on a daily basis so that they actually want to save it and nourish it and encourage it.
Right. Well, first of all, we're not stupid. I mean, I used to work for a guy who said, good landscape can make up a lot for bad buildings, you know. So you have landscape, it just makes your buildings better no matter what. You know, it's like we're people, we respond to that. You know, it just makes sense to do it. And we fight for it in our buildings. So we've actually had some of our projects, like our sales pitch used to be to our affordable housing clients, a lot of them, well, we're just going to have a regular roof like every building, and we're going to do these tray systems, and you just set them on the roof. And if anything happens to your roof, you pick them up and patch it and put it back. It's like super simple, work like a charm. Okay, now what we're seeing is we come back, all of our green roofs that had trays on them are now just roofs. They've taken the plants off because their maintenance department go, oh, it's a lot of work to take care of plants. So we quit doing that. Now we make full planters that cannot be taken out.
But I think, also to answer your question, there's a lot more data now that proves that people do better when they can see green space. People do better when they have natural light. When you actually see green space, but you're not necessarily right next to it, you feel like you're closer to it. And so now we're seeing the data on well-being, whereas before we didn't have it. And we actually do schools as well, and we've done charter schools, and we didn't show any of them here, but we look back to those historical models because that's how we think kids should learn. And just having that outdoor, being able to see outdoors, being able to see the greenery is just so much, you know. And I think once you do it, people see it and they believe it and they understand the benefits of it, but having that data is a big part of it too.
Thank you for your
go ahead.
work. I'm very impressed by everything your professional practice is incredible, marvelous. I'm a student myself. I just wanted to ask, it seems like there's a common trend amongst architecture and new developments all over the world that are including nature and including the environment as part of the design process, and thus having greater results, right? They're being welcome, they're very much championed now, right? LEED is like the thing. How would you feel, however, if people started borrowing those ideas and taking those intentions and using them to create housing that is not affordable?
That's great.
But like for profit. So
That's great.
Further gentrifying and further.
Well, gentrifying is different, but using the principles.
How would you feel if people did that, and rather than accomplishing your goals, actually did the opposite and made it harder for people
Yeah.
That's why we need good policy. So as architects, typically we don't have the control over who builds affordable housing and who doesn't. And I actually personally think we need a national social housing policy like other countries have, where everyone deserves a place to live, everyone deserves a roof over their head. The fact that the state of California has a small city living on the sidewalks unhoused is shameful, because if California were a country, we'd be like the 5th largest GDP in the world. So, we have to house everyone, but it starts with our politicians and our policy. So that's why we're advocates of that. And we do as much as we can on that side of things to change policy to get more affordable housing built, but it's from that policy standpoint. Does that answer your question? Oh, yeah. Well, I hate the fact that our neighborhood has completely gentrified. Actually, Venice, we couldn't afford to live there right now. We live there because we've lived there for 30 years. We couldn't afford it.
Welcome to California.
Yeah, neighborhoods start to die when they gentrify like that. We need both. We need a mixture of affordable housing and market rate. People of different income levels have to live together.
Any other questions? A couple other over here. Great.
State.
Except, well, it depends on the city. So the city of Santa Monica, even though the whole thing goes through the state, it gets inspected by the state, it comes out and they're not supposed to look at it. The city wants to look at it and plan check.
Well, that's Santa Monica. It's a state approval process, but Santa Monica, as you know, is its own planet. So they make their own rules. So we have to go through a plan check process even after it's been approved by the state in Santa Monica.
Not if you're in Santa Monica.
Not if you're in Santa Monica. It makes it slower like everything.
Cities have to get on board and have some kind of policy for permitting prefabs separate from permitting regular stick-built. Yeah.
Almost as bad as Santa Barbara.
Yeah, there.
Was there another question over here? Here we go.
Hi, you mentioned early on in your talk about writing grants and finding funding to put together your nonprofits and things like that. And my question in general is about funding for these different projects, like for example, the SIX project, or you talked about working with private developers. So for a housing project for the homeless, what kind of funding do you tap into to make that happen?
Well, it's very complicated. I'll just be as brief as possible, otherwise this will be like a filibuster. All affordable housing projects have multiple sources of funding. The main vehicle is tax credits. So basically they're nonprofits. They don't pay tax, so they don't need that, but they get credits. They syndicate those, sell them to Amazon for 90 cents on the dollar, and that's the main funding. They all have gap funding, so it comes from community development, block grants, banks, blah, blah, blah. That's why it's so expensive. We have to take sometimes a dozen requirements from the different funding sources and bring them into a project that they can all approve. It's ridiculous.
And they all come with strings attached. So the lenders, depending on whether they're the bank or the tax credit committee, have strings attached, and they will tell you exactly where to spend the money, and if you have to build traditional units, or if you can build shared housing, and that's a little pet peeve with me, because I don't think banks should know what the best thing to do is necessarily.
All the architects in the room know this. They look at us, go, how do we get the cost down? Or what, we got to make it less expensive. And we turn around to see who's behind us, because we don't make it more expensive like you do. We make it cheaper for you, and it's like all the stuff around it, from the way it's financed, all the requirements, make it more expensive. It's not the designers or the architects. We're actually the heroes for them. We make it possible. And so what needs to change is the policy around how we do housing. I mean, nobody wants to tackle this. I say this over and over and over again. When we do housing, we have to do 100% accessible. We want our projects accessible. But if you look at the demographics, it's about a 20% of people with disabilities. So let's make it 50%, not 100%. We showed how many more units you can build. We have CASP inspectors now. It's like, it's just crazy. So I'll leave it at that.
Okay, well, we got to wrap it up because we're supposed to be out of here by 8 o'clock. So I just wanted to say it's 7:30, so we're going to end right on time. Couple thanks to Tara, especially from the AIA, and Beverly, my wife, who provided all the food out there. This is a little bit of a family affair here, and just wanted to say thanks to everyone for coming out here tonight. Larry and Angie will stick around to answer any questions that you have, and also there's some more books left, so if you guys didn't want a book and you didn't get one, you want to get it signed, Ahana's right over here. She was the beautiful woman receiving all your money, so she's over here. She's happy to take some more of it, and all funds go to pay for these books. So by the way, these are cheaper than I bought books for online. So let's give them a final round of applause. I just love these guys, and I'm so thankful that they could be here and be a part of this. So yeah, thanks for coming out, guys. They'll stick around and answer any other questions that we didn't get to. So thanks so much for being here tonight, and we'll post a notice for when this is available online. Thank you.